Hi everybody, welcome to Board Gaming, and welcome to Room and Board. My name's Chris George, and if you clicked on this video, well, you have 5 minutes to live. No, sorry, no, that is a different script. My day job is I do the voiceover and the videos for all those spy agency, spy videos and recordings, so spy voiceovers. It's a real thing. Don't look it up, you won't find any record of it. And if I told you any more, well, then they'd have to kill me. But you might have clicked on this video because you are looking for what should I play after Catan? Or board games that are like Catan or Catan, if you're nasty. And so you might be new to the board gaming hobby, and it is a bold and beautiful hobby indeed. Or you might be here from Big Board Game and are working for quality control, making sure I don't lead people astray, in which case, hey, I'm happy you're here, and I look forward to reading your contributions in the comments as well. But Settlers of Catan is an awesome game. It is. Catan was the game that got me personally into the hobby and blew my mind wide open as to the possibilities that a board game can provide. But since discovering Catan, I have discovered a heck of a lot of other board games as well. And so, of course, I want to share these discoveries with you and with everyone, with the world. And hey, there are a lot of reasons why I still love Catan. I do. I will still be happy to play a game with it whenever my friends want to play. And I don't see myself getting rid of this copy anytime soon. And I often introduce people to the hobby through this game because it was so successful in introducing me to the board gaming hobby. So with that in mind, this is a new series that I'm going to be doing called From Gateway to Gamer. Thank you to my patrons for prompting me to do this video series and also for the title, because let me tell you, it's a great title, because Catan is a great gateway game, or a welcoming game, as some people are trying to make it happen from now on. And so what I want to do with this series is I'm going to isolate all of the reasons why I particularly enjoy Catan, and hopefully the reasons that mesh with why you enjoy Catan as well. And for each of those reasons, I'm going to give you a game or two that maybe you could look into and proceed along your journey from gateway to gamer. Because once you're bitten with the bug, let me tell you, you're gonna have double what I got behind me before long. Because there are a lot of great games out there. There are a ton of awesome experiences, and I am so excited for you to be able to explore all of them. So enough preamble, let's get into the reasons. Let's get into the examples. And the first game that I'll suggest, and this to me also feels like the natural step, the natural progression, a little step up in terms of complexity while still appealing to a lot of things that I enjoy about Catan. It will definitely broaden your experience a little bit more. And this also relates specifically to the resource management aspect of Catan, getting the resources and then spending them on things that will get you points. And so the game I'm talking about is a game called Puerto Rico. Now, Puerto Rico has been around for a long time, and maybe you've heard of it. I remember Puerto Rico being suggested to me by a friend of a friend at a bar when I was talking about my love for Catan. I actually think we were playing Catan at a bar, and someone said, oh yeah, if you like this, you should definitely check out Puerto Rico. And it deals with that same idea of you're going to want to collect a number of resources, and then you're going to ship them out on ships to get points. That's basically the premise of it. But along the way, you'll also build buildings that get you your own little special powers and have different resources that you have to optimize. And there's a really interesting turn structure that happens as well, where I'll pick a move and everybody gets to do that thing, similar to how if you roll the dice, everybody gets the resources. Everybody gets to do the thing that I pick, but I get to do a little special thing that makes it unique for me. And I'm also choosing to make that action happen now. It's definitely a step up in complexity from Catan, but I don't think it is too much of a step in complexity. And if you particularly enjoy getting resources and figuring out what to do with them, what to do with your wood and your sheep in creative ways, well, then definitely check out Puerto Rico. It's been around for a long time, but I really think it is the next logical step in terms of getting deeper and deeper into more complex mechanics while still feeling in the similar little wooden pieces territory. So that's the next step. That's the logical progression. But for me, the reason why Settlers of Catan really blew my mind is because of all the trading and negotiation that can happen. I personally love a game that if I talk long enough, I can make things happen for myself that the dice are otherwise not happening. And so it's this aspect of trading resources and negotiation that brings us to our next game, which is a game called Chinatown. Now, Chinatown is basically negotiation, the board game. There's a big board with different lots, and these represent the lots of the markets where you can put up your wares in Chinatown. You're trying to create the most viable business and get the most money at the end of the game. And so you're going to get randomly these different spaces on the board and randomly these different stalls, and you're going to have to come up with creative deals, interesting negotiations with people around the table so that you can get market stalls that are right next to each other, and then fill those market stalls with one big bustling seafood shop or a laundromat or a factory or whatever it is. The larger a connecting area you have, the more money you'll get. But everybody else around the table knows that you're going to be getting a heck of a lot of money, so it's all about wheeling and dealing to make sure that you get the best deals and you have your hand in the most pots. And that's one thing that I do love about Catan, is the ability to know that, oh yeah, I know clay is very valuable, so I'm not giving it to you for one card. I'm giving it to you specifically for 2 sheep and a wheat. And you can make those sorts of deals and negotiations in Chinatown as well. Another game that is a little bit similar in terms of the negotiation aspect, although it veers more towards the bluffing side of things, which I don't think Catan necessarily has too much, but it's a game called Sheriff of Nottingham. And this is a fantastic game. The basic premise is you're just sneaking goods into Nottingham. But where the negotiation happens is you're going to declare your goods, put it in a little bag and say, hey, I've only got 3 apples in here. You might be hiding contraband that the sheriff obviously wants to open and tax you on. But then when you pass it to him, you say, listen, Sheriff, if you give me my bag back and don't open it, you can put as much contraband as you want when it's my turn to be the sheriff. And sail on through. And so there is that little aspect of negotiation in there as well. So that's my secondary recommendation in this category. If you like that trading and negotiation aspect, there's no trading in Sheriff of Nottingham, but you can, well, you can trade favors. Let's put it that way. Or you can backstab and not honor them whatsoever. I think Chinatown fits the bill in terms of a pure trading and negotiation game, but that is your other alternate of a game that I think is still a lot of fun. Now, the next reason I absolutely love Catan, and this was another reason which blew my mind because I didn't understand that games could do this, is the modular board aspect of the game. The fact that this game board will be different every time. You can mix up the tiles and you can mix up the numbers. That to me is so exciting. And it's something that a lot of games have attempted to replicate down the line. But actually, when I was personally getting into board gaming and going on this board gaming journey, those were the first 2 things that I searched for. I said, I want a game with negotiation and I want a game with modular boards. Those are the things that I love. They're the things that make me really excited to play this game. And so, of course, those were the things that I attempted to seek out. And so while there's a lot of games that can be recommended in this sort of modular board area, the primary game that I want to recommend is a game called Barony. Now, Barony is a little bit more of a tactical game. It's got kind of a chess or a Go or a head-to-head battle feeling to it. So if you don't necessarily like those tactical decisions where your positioning really matters, don't necessarily go for it. That's something I also appreciate about Catan is the tactical nature of where to place your roads and where to place your settlements and how you will cut off people and racing to claim those pivotal points that are so important for your strategy that are just 2 spaces away, but other people can get to as well. Barony, gives me all of that. It kind of works on both of those levels. But Barony is one of those games that I think really feels like Catan and chess had a love child. And it's not this little love child either, that it was cut from future editions. It's this love child. But the process of playing Barony is very similar. You're going to have a hexagonal board that is made up of all these different tiles, and you're going to be placing your little figures on them and turning them into settlements. And whenever you turn it into a settlement, you get resources, and then you can use those resources to basically buy your points. So very similar progression, but there's a little bit more of a tactical nature to this one as well. I particularly enjoy Barony. It's kind of like my little hidden gem that I always like to talk about. So of course I want to talk about it now. This feels like should be a home run for anyone who does like Catan and wants that tactical experience. And if you do like the modular board, that's one thing I do love about Barony, is that you get this wonderfully tactile puzzle that you have to figure out, and it's going to be different every time. So yeah, Barony is my pick for the modular board side of things. But another game that you could check out, a couple options that I was playing around with, is a game called Keyflower and even a game called Vindication. These both I feel could be worth looking into if Barony maybe doesn't tilt your crank, or you want tons of modular board and different arrangements that you can do. Give those a couple checks out as well. Now, there is a part of me, this kind of relates to the trading and the negotiation, that one of the reasons I do love Catan is that you can pull some sneaky tricks on people. I mean, you can do that in a lot of games, but one of my favorite things to do, and something I will do any chance I get when I'm playing, and I'm revealing my hand now, is whenever you have a Monopoly card, I desperately will trade away anything that I have in my hand that I know I'm going to declare for the Monopoly. If rock is particularly scarce, I'll sell him and I'll haul, and I'll say, I guess I'll trade you the rock, but you gotta make it worth my while. And they say, oh yeah, I need it because I'm going to make a city. And then you trade away the rock, and then you play your Monopoly card and say, yes, everyone give me all of your rock. So you've essentially stolen a bunch of resources in addition to stealing the rock from everybody else. This is one of my favorite things to do in Catan, and probably why nobody plays with me anymore. But if you like that sort of aspect of pulling these sneaky tricks, well, two games that I always recommend are Coup and Avalon. These are short group games where you're trying to take out the other people or lie and deceive, and they deal with hidden roles. Other games in this genre are like Mafia, Werewolf, Secret Hitler. If you've heard of any of them, these fall into that category. But I think because Catan is such a social game and it gets people talking, or at least that's how I like to play it. It's less fun when you're just sitting rolling dice and passing the dice around and around. It's a lot more fun when you're active and you're trading with people. That's why I do also recommend Coup and Avalon, because they're very interactive games, and they're about lying and deceiving each other, but in a lower stakes, well, depends who you play with, but in that sort of the way that also scratches that Catan itch. Most people who I introduce Catan to, I will also introduce Coup to around the same time, and both are usually accepted and enjoyed by the people who I introduce it to. So that's why I am recommending it here. Coup and Avalon, they're both fantastic games that potentially you've heard of. And hey, maybe you've heard of some of these games and this is the push that you need to go out and get yourself a copy to play. Those are pretty cheap too, so those are pretty affordable. So yeah, if you like the sneaky trick aspect of Catan, well, check those two out. Now, another thing that I really enjoy about the game is, we talked about it a little bit in the resource management, but is the way you get resources in Catan. I found this idea that somebody rolls a dice on their turn and everybody gets some resource if they're in the right spot. I found that idea to be really exciting, and it keeps the game moving and it keeps everybody feeling involved on everyone else's turns. So if you like that particular aspect of the game, then the game that I would recommend to you absolutely is a game called Space Base. It does basically the same thing, except you're creating your own little space system and it's a race to get the most points there instead of, on an uninhabited island. We've moved past that. We've gone years and years into the future. And instead of having a communal board where you'll have to tactically put your pieces down, you're going to be purchasing additional rockets to add to your fleet, and those will be assigned to a particular number. So when that number is rolled, you get to do those sorts of things. And there's a little bit of a twist because you can pick one dice or both dice depending on certain factors in the game. And so you're going to want to load up on your 5s and your 6s a little bit more. But you're going to want to do that anyway, just probability-wise, rather than the 2s and the 12s. Anyway, it has this exact mechanic, and I think if that is something that really excites you and you enjoy everybody being able to participate in the game in that way, and I think it's a great way to keep everybody involved and invested when it's not their turns, then check out Space Base. It's a very good one as well. Now, this next one might be a little bit of a stretch, but what I also really enjoyed about Catan back in the day was the length of time that it takes to play a game. And this may seem weird because this game honestly oscillates from 45 minutes to an hour to 2.5 hours. And well, with me and my group, it generally would skew towards the 2.5 hour point because, we like to talk. And so with this idea in mind, what I really like about it is that you can have this sort of, I would hazard to say, epic narrative, this journey that you go on over the span of these short hours. And so I guess trying to replicate that sort of progression system and the journey and the arc of the game, I would recommend a game called Scythe. Now, Scythe is definitely more complicated than Catan. Everybody is going to have their own individual player board and their own individual power, and they're going to start in a very specific part of the map. But the core aspect of Scythe is the game ends when somebody gets to 6 points, and you can get these points in a variety of ways. You can get them by getting resources from the land and building buildings and building structures and building little mechs or getting more workers out that function kind of like the settlements in terms of you put them on the board and they can grab resources from the board if you take the right action. Now, there are a lot of other elements to it. There's a little bit of a battle mechanic in there where you can fight each other, and you can get a point for fighting. You can get up to 2 points for fighting. But it's not about the conflict. It's about the potential threat, and again, that sort of positioning and using resources effectively. And I just feel like if you enjoy Catan and are ready for potentially a deeper and a little bit broader experience, Scythe is definitely one to check out. There are no dice in Scythe, so these resources will be determined by your own strategic acumen. But I just think it is a fantastic game, and I am not alone in that thought. So many people enjoy this game. And if you are ready for something a little bit more epic in terms of that scope, but still has a feeling of running around on a hexagonal board and getting resources, I think check out Scythe. Again, this one might be a little bit more complicated than what you are used to, and so it might take a little bit to get into. And so I wouldn't recommend this if you don't have the right group of people who want to delve a little bit deeper. But if you are looking for that sort of deeper experience, I think Scythe and Catan have enough parallels that it will feel slightly familiar while building upon what you already know. Now, one of the last points I want to talk about is that I also really enjoy this game because it's not complicated. There's a very simple win condition. Somebody gets to 10 points and they win. Doesn't matter how you get those 10 points. You can get them in a variety of ways, but you just get to 10 points and the game ends immediately and you win. And if you like that sort of simple, idea, you have that simple goal, you don't want to deal with other mechanics or other things to consider. You don't want to pay attention to, oh, there's only 2 things left, well, now the game's over. No, you want to focus on those 10 points and that's it. Well, then I would recommend Dune Imperium. Dune Imperium is a newer game. It has this same system. Somebody gets to 10 points, you win, and basically there are these 5 tracks or 4 tracks that you're trying to move up on. And whenever you pass half of it, you get a point. That's it. If you're the top of it, you get an extra point. There's this big old deck of cards that are a little bit random, kind of like the development cards, but when you draw from it, oftentimes it gives you a way to get an additional point. Now, Dune Imperium is a little bit different than Catan because it is a combination of what is called a deck builder and a worker placement. So you're going to be placing your little workers on the board in specific spots, and that will get you stuff. And then at the same time, you're going to be building a deck of cards that you're going to cycle through, playing a card in order to place your worker on a specific spot. So if I don't have any green cards in my hand, for example, I cannot place my worker in that green area. So it becomes a balancing act of how do you structure your deck in a way that gives you special powers and lets you get those extra points while also paying attention to having a variety so you can go in a variety of places and be in competition for all those points. It's kind of like the largest army and the longest road in terms of those tracks on the side that you are constantly fighting for, and you can have those swings of points at the last minute to just leapfrog over your opponent and sneak in the win. And so Dune Imperium, I think, is a great one for that. Another one that I was contemplating recommending for this idea is a game called Kemet. And there's just been a new version released, but you could find an old version as well. It's, again, very simple. You're controlling an area of land, and you want to get to 10 points. And you get points by having your little army figures next to certain spots on the map. You can take these away from people, again, and have that idea of a swing. Now, Kemet is a little bit more battle focused, so you will have a bit more battle. It'll be more leaning towards that risk side of things. But I always describe Catan to people as if you took the best parts of Risk and Monopoly and you threw away all the bad parts, then you would have this game. And so that's why I don't mind making parallels to games that have a little bit more of a battle system to them, because I feel like the area and controlling the map is equally as important as what you do with the resources and how you spend them and how you trade it as well. I think it's a very tight map, and getting those placements matters. And that's why I think in Kemet, that idea of getting the placement that you need and protecting it against other people might be something that would interest you. But if you're not interested in those sorts of battle games, I would shy away from this one for sure. Dune Imperium also has a focus on that sort of battle mechanic as well. You're going to be fighting battles at the end of each round, which will generally yield points or good things to people. So it's about gearing up and doing those battles as well. So if you don't like battles, perhaps stay away from those. But they both do have the nice, simple win condition, get to 10 points, and the potential for those large swings to happen on various turns, which I like. I like sitting back and saying, oh, I'm not in the lead. I can't possibly win. Focus on that other person, please, and don't attack me. And then playing my third knight, revealing my victory point, and building a city to get that 4-point swing and jump from 6 to 10 right before someone is about to move from 9 to 10. So that's something I quite enjoy, is possible in Catan, and I think it's possible in those two games as well. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is that if you love Catan and you're looking for more Catan, you'll want a game that can give you more of what you love. You'll want to expand upon this experience. And what better way to do that? The Catan expansions. Cities and Knights, Seafarers, Traders and Barbarians, and Explorers and Pirates. There have been 4 major expansions for this game. And if you're new to the board gaming hobby, well, it might feel weird to buy an expansion that feels like it completely changes the game. And that's what it does. I feel like all of these expansions, I haven't played all of them personally, but they do change the games in very drastic ways while still keeping the core of what you like. I have Cities and Knights. I actually have Cities and Knights in this box. I've stuffed together in my very messy box. I have the 5 to 6 player expansion, and that's where I house most of the Cities and Knights stuff. And then I have everything else on the side because I like having it in one box. But Cities and Knights is a really fun twist on the game, and it adds in a lot of stuff that makes it feel like almost a completely new experience. And they're all compatible with each other, and they're all going to give you more of what you like. So if all of these games that I mentioned, if you take a look at them and you're like, I don't want to learn something new, maybe seriously consider getting an expansion. When I won the Snakes and Lattes Catan tournament in Toronto back in 2012 or 2013, I forget when it was. I entered into a competition and I ended up winning the whole thing, and it was the best day of my life. I asked everybody at the store and everybody in the tournament, or at least who were in the finals with me, because everyone who made it to the finals got themselves a new expansion, which was kind of cool. I think it was in 2013 because that is when the last expansion, Explorers and Pirates, was coming out. So they had that as offer as a prize if you'd made it to the finals. But I asked everybody which one I should get, and it was unanimous that Cities and Knights was the way to go. And I understand why. Cities and Knights, it adds in an additional structure that's worth 4 victory points. You upgrade your city to that. You get to start the game with a city. You have to get up to 13 victory points. And then anytime your city produces resources on 3 of the 5, I think it's forests, sheep, and rock, probably, you get an additional new resource. So you still get your 2 wood, but then you also get an additional new resource which can be used to level up your development card track, because development cards are gone. They're a thing of the past in Cities and Knights, but they're replaced with these new cards that you can get things depending on your levels that you've upgraded with these new resources. And these new development cards are awesome. They're so cool. There's one that can swap 2 numbers on the board, although you can't swap any red numbers or 2s or 12s because that would just be a little unfair. But you can swap other numbers on the board and give yourself a whole new number to get resources from. And so it changes the game, but in a way that doesn't feel super overwhelming as well. Seafarers, it's a whole new map setup. So if you do love that modular board, maybe you want to shy towards that one, and you go out and you explore the land and you explore the islands and you discover new things. Traders and Barbarians, it just adds in 5 small, tiny variations. So if you just want to dip your toes into a change, maybe that's one to start out with. And I think Explorers and Pirates, it being the last expansion to have been made, I think it should be your last expansion that you should get. Because it really expands the game in a significant way and it feels a lot different. So I wouldn't go for that one. But there is so much that you can still do with your beloved Catan and can introduce people to these new mechanics, and it might make getting to some of these more complicated games that are out there that are still awesome and I'm sure you will get to eventually a little bit easier to digest and to understand. Get your particular group on board as well. So if you've been hesitant in terms of getting one of these games, see, for me, it's tough because I always kind of shy away from expansions. I think either they should be in the game itself or I'm just going to get something completely different. But I do think, at least with Cities and Knights, it might be a nice stepping stone and it might be a nice thing to have and add to your game. But you have to think about why you own this game and who you play it with. If you play with the same group over and over and over and you want that variation, I think then you should get an expansion. If you don't play it with the same group, Like for me, I introduce a lot of people to the hobby with Catan. I still do. And so I'm constantly playing with new people. And so I really haven't played Cities and Nights all that much, even though I've owned it for almost 10 years now. Because it's just better to explain the simpler version first, and then when you're familiar with that, then you can tack on the changes to the rules. But yeah, those are my suggestions to help get you from gateway to gamer. What a catchphrase that is. And there will absolutely be many, many more suggestions. And if you're watching this and you have some suggestions of people who have enjoyed Catan and then have enjoyed another game that you've introduced them, absolutely put those in the comments below. So be sure to check that out as well. It'll be a great resource. And the reason being is because this hobby is huge. There are so many games out there. And when you're starting off with something beloved as a starting point and you're attempting to find new suggestions, you'll often hear things from people who say, I love this game, I loved this game, that's what got me into the hobby, and now I love this game. And sometimes those will be great suggestions, and sometimes they might feel a little bit complicated, or they just may not gel with what you're actually looking for. So that's why hopefully this was helpful in terms of breaking down what I particularly like about Catan and games that remind me of that feeling, because it's never going to be a one-for-one trade. Of course not. It's not going to be a wood for a wood. It's going to be 2 sheep for a wood, or 1 rock for 3 wood. But at least there will be those common factors to connect that feeling, and it is through that feeling that hopefully you'll continue to search out things that you particularly enjoy. Anyway, that's it for me. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, hey, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because it really helps me out and you won't even notice that you did it. And if you do, I promise you, the next time we play Catan together, the first trade we make, I'll give you 2 resources for 1. Guaranteed. The first one of the game. Oof. Oh, I'm a little scared now that I've made that promise, but a deal's a deal and I can't go back on it. I wouldn't be an honorable Catan player if I did that. So yeah, like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. My name's Chris George, and I do not have a catchphrase. I don't. Even though I said one this series, it's just a series. It's the catchphrase of the series maybe, but it's not my catchphrase, so we're getting into a slippery slope territory, but very specific language is also how you make some very specific game-winning deals in Catan. Happy trading, and I'll see you in the next video.